Welcome to Smash Fiction, where we pit two or more fictional characters against each other in a battle of strength, or wits, or turning chess into a live-action role-playing game and see who would win. That's what war is, you guys. That's all war is. This week, the 300 versus the Unsullied. The time, history. The place, Thermopylae. To one side is a sheer rocky cliff face, to the other a raging sea, leaving would-be travelers attempting to cross only a narrow pass to do so. In Greek, the name means the Hot Gates, a reference to the area's sulfur springs, but also to a nearby cavern said to be the entrance to the underworld. At this very moment, however, the name could also refer to the fact that two formations of hundreds of extremely athletic men each currently glare at each other from opposite ends of the pass. In the center of the pass, a soldier from each side approach each other. One of them, a man naked except for a loincloth, a cape, a helmet, and a dark beard, crosses his arms suspiciously. "I am Leonidas, king of Sparta," he says, in a completely accurate Greek and definitely not Scottish accent. The other soldier, a young and nearly hairless man wearing a quilted tunic and spiked bronze cap, nods politely. This one has taken the name Grey Worm. These ones are marching on behalf of Daenerys Targaryen, the first of her name, Queen of Meereen, Queen of the Andals and the Rhoynar, and the First Men. Khaleesi of the— yes, I heard all of her innumerable titles from the messenger she sent to us, the one I kicked down a well. If Grey Worm feels any emotion about this response, it doesn't show on his face. "You refuse, then, Her Majesty's offer of surrender." "Surrender? You must not know much about Spartans. We are descended from Heracles himself. Ours is the way of the spear and the sword. From the moment we learn to stand, we are trained how to fight. We are the finest warriors in the history of the world, and the 300 men that stand before you are the finest warrior stock our nation has to offer." Grey Worm listens patiently to Leonidas' declaration before responding. Then this one feels it is only right to inform you that you stand before the Unsullied. These are the slaves of Astapor, raised from childhood to be fearless, disciplined agents of their master's will. These have stood against armies 10 times, 20 times their size, and prevailed. These are the finest warriors in the history of the world, and the 3 centuries that stand before you are the finest of Daenerys Stormborn's forces. This one offers Leonidas and the Spartans one final chance. Lay down your weapons and allow these ones to enter, or Leonidas will be remembered only for being the warrior king who died trying to save his nation from the loving embrace of their rightful queen. Leonidas smirks. "You've deeply misjudged the situation, Grey Worm. But even if you were right, a true Spartan would die 1,000 deaths before bending the knee to any foreign king or queen. Come then, and let us see who the gods favor this day." The two armies take weapons in hand, raise their shields, and begin a charge. By day's end, one of them will stand triumphant, while the other lies broken and beaten. But Leonidas was wrong about one thing. It wasn't the gods whose favor he needed to worry about. It was mine! Dan Mulcairn, your judge for this match. Advocating for the 300 Spartans are Kit Mulcairn.
Fight in the shade? Nah. I fight using shade, bitch.
And Liz Logan.
Is someone expecting a leather-bound package?
Advocating for the Unsullied are Miles Schneiderman.
Spartans! What is your profession? Corpses. Oh, you're corpses. All right. I mean, that's fine, I guess. I just wasn't expecting that. Corpses. All right.
And our special guest, Stephen Atwell.
Who also studies non-fictional history.
Yay!
That's not going to help you in this match, I'm sorry to say.
I mean, you say that now.
That's where you're
All
wrong.
right. I look forward to being proven wrong. And to clarify, we are using the 300 Spartans from the 2007 film 300 and the Unsullied as they appear in the novel series A Song of Ice and Fire. In order to determine who goes first this week, I decided to look up some amazing facts about each advocate by going to Google, typing in each of the advocates' first names followed by the word is, and seeing what Google would automatically supply. And guys, I have learned some amazing things about each of you. For instance, Miles is the boss of his body.
I mean, I could have told you that.
Miles is the Great Wall of China.
Also, previous knowledge.
Or Miles is dead. That last part wasn't really surprising. I've killed him at least like 2 or 3 times in my judge's intros alone.
See, that was the part that came as a surprise to me, but that's fine.
Well, you haven't been paying attention to this show then.
Yeah, you're a zombie robot if a canon is to be believed.
But am I even human?
Kit had some pretty interesting factoids too, such as Kit is a baby what? And Kit is twice as old as Sam. Not quite as braggadocious as Miles is the boss of his body, of course, but you know, at least Kit's really sticking it to little baby Sam.
I think Sam must be a fetus if I'm a baby something.
What the fuck?
I was very excited to see what our new guest Steven was bringing to the table. It turns out, according to Google, Steven is Cookie Cat, but also Steven is a big fat meanie. Both of which explain why he keeps clawing at me when I reach for a cookie. That is a bad first impression, Steven.
I seem to be the yin and the yang.
That's right.
For the record,
of course,
those are both Steven Universe references.
Yes, to be frank, all of the ones that came up for Steven were Steven Universe references.
That's fantastic. I love it so much.
But of course, Google realized immediately which of us was the biggest badass, because typing Liz is into Google reveals that, quote, Liz is all biz. And I gotta reward that kind of dedication here on the show. So Team 300 will be going first, followed by Team Unsullied.
Oh, that makes me so happy.
Team 300, come back with your opening arguments or on them.
The following is called How to Be a Spartan. Step 1, be born. Step 2, make sure your baby self is strong enough so you don't get thrown off a mountain. Step 3, obtain buzz cut. Step 4, wrestle a man 3 times as large as you and don't get sat on and die yet. Step 5, survive alone in the wilderness with nothing and don't die yet. Step 6, obtain bottle of massage oil and don't die yet. Step 7, obtain less clothing than you hope for and paint on 6-pack abs. Just kidding, those are real. Step 8, be baptized in blood during wars with your Greek neighbors and Persians. Die if it's for glory and saves the Greek homeland. But, you know, don't die yet if you can.
These good greasy boys did not come here to play, which is really too bad because they were seriously deprived of their childhoods. All in order to become tools of Grecian war. At the age of 7, these boys were taken from their families and taught to be murderously ruthless and crafty. Anything that they needed to be to survive. But not for the purpose of staying alive because life is sacred or some bullshit like that. No, they were trained, raised to dedicate their lives to be the ultimate killing machines for the city-state of Sparta, a seductively well-oiled machine of beings whose happiness comes from doing their part for their colony. They're more ant than man.
So as you can see, being a Spartan warrior is pretty darn hard, and attaining that title is an accomplishment in and of itself. Not to mention, Spartans were more than just warriors. They had political roles, social roles, family roles, etc., etc. Leonidas was a king, and a good one at that, who was just as skilled in combat as any warrior, holding off thousands of Persians with only 299 other Spartans in the famous Battle of Thermopylae. They are one of the only fighting forces where emotion and passion serves them well. They always have something to fight for. This strengthens them as overall fighters, developing them to be more than just an unthinking sack of meat that follows the highest bidder.
But I cannot stress enough how much Spartans value their own martial ability. Their self-esteems are tied to it. When Leonidas told Ephialtes that he could help the war effort by tending to the wounded because he just wasn't born with the physical ability to protect his fellow soldiers, Ephialtes was like, fuck that! That's what growing up Spartan do. The Unsullied fight because they have to, but the Spartans fight because they horny for it.
So let's focus on our individual warriors. Both Spartans and Unsullied have absolutely horrific upbringings, starting with a form of eugenics. The seemingly strongest and healthiest boys are chosen to be raised, or, like Kit said, train-raised, in the case of the Unsullied. Then both warriors go through a gamut of brutal training where death is always around the corner. Though they utilize nearly identical weaponry, tactics, like the phalanx, and armor, one pointed difference is that the Unsullied are fully castrated, limiting their strength capabilities as compared to a Spartan who is uncastrated. Unsullied are also not instructed to use dead bodies as an effective blockade or jump off said dead wall and cut someone's arm off, but, you know, Spartans do what they gotta. A further difference. Unsullied, as part of their awesomeness, regularly drink an elixir that dulls their sensitivity to pain. While it may sound like a good thing, it really isn't. Take this example. An Unsullied in a shield wall, phalanx, whatever, sustains a spear wound to his stomach. The Unsullied is so dull to pain that he hardly feels it and continues to fight, with his brethren not having a clue what is happening. Without having alerted anyone to replace him due to the injury, the Unsullied falls out of the shield wall and creates an opening for the enemy. A Spartan need not deaden himself to pain, he enjoys it. but he's also smart to know when to bow out due to the inability to protect his brothers.
Those are all real good points, Liz, but I just want to add, our dudes fight using phalanx tactics with the fucking synchronicity of schooling fish. Like, how do they move together so perfectly? It's like choreographed. If the 300 were a dance crew, they'd be the best. But instead, they're just the best at using a shield, sword, and spear to mow through the opposition. Thousands of the opposition.
That was a Meet the Spartans reference. Just don't watch that movie. I mean, watch it if you want to, but don't. In A Song of Ice and Fire, the main group of Unsullied who are focused on in the story are not even fully trained. What is their claim to fame? Oh yeah, slaughtering a bunch of slave masters, albeit asshole slave masters, you're welcome, Miles, who were virtually unarmed. The other reason they won is that the other mercenary forces were either drunk or had defected within that city. Another Unsullied force was beaten at the Horns of Hazat. The whole appeal of the Unsullied, i.e. not feeling pain, having no connections, is basically eroded by the time of A Dance with Dragons, where they start choosing their own names and refuse to obey certain orders. Free will! They are stuck in the city of Marine, a place where they get regularly murdered by the Sons of the Harpy and are hated by much of the populace. So much for a place to fight for! And then finally, let's talk about the most famous group of Unsullied, the 3,000 of Qohor. 3,000 Unsullied, along with some other mercenary companies, defeated a 50,000-strong force of Dothraki led by Khal Temo. Do you know why the Unsullied won? Because the Dothraki made a terrible tactical decision. The Dothraki are a horse culture. They think infantry is a load of hot garbage not worthy of respect, so they decided to charge straight into the Unsullied lines. If you have played one of the bajillion Total War games or any strategy game ever, spears, shields, and phalanx formations absolutely wreck cavalry. So congratulations, Unsullied, on your not-so-impressive accomplishment that everyone knows. If the Dothraki weren't arrogant, they could have fired their bows from horseback or distracted the Unsullied and flanked them. They would have outlasted them.
Our boys take on Persians like a platform game on easy mode. Each wave of enemies, every new challenge, increasingly difficult, but still no problem. First, shield guys. Whatever. Then a massive volley of arrows. That's what good shields are for, right? Then, cavalry. Rest in peace, horsies. Then, the Immortals, the quote, deadliest fighting force in all of Asia, which, may I remind you, is a very large continent with very many people in it. Well, not deadly enough. Then, the 300 defeated a rhino the size of a triceratops. And by they, I mean the young new guy, the cute one. He took that rhino out by himself by chucking a spear into its eye. Then, it keeps going. They fought an army of grenade throwers. Grenades, by the way, were such a foreign concept to the Spartans that it was called magic. The 300 were not prepared for explosives that fling shrapnel, apparent by how naked they are. But clearly could have fought as naked as an old school Olympic athlete because even fucking bombs weren't enough. But what's better than explosives? Elephants as big as mammoths, obvi. Well, not good enough either.
Spartans are unique, but they're also part of the whole. They are shown to be creative and to make their own combat decisions while still contributing to the fighting force as a unit. There is absolutely no point in 300 where a Spartan shows fear, even while facing a foe that is umpteenth times bigger than their fighting force. Spartans know they have superior tactics and will not stop until they or the enemy are wiped out. The only reason the Spartans lost at the Hot Gates was because Ephialtes betrayed them and showed the Persians the goat path. The Spartans could have literally just sat there and stopped every single soldier in Xerxes' army for all we know. The regular foot soldiers, the immortals, the giants, that stupid rhino, it does not matter to the Spartans. They can take on whatever the ancient world throws at them, and dare I say, even a dragon.
I'm not going to try and front like there isn't a lot in common between the 300 and the Unsullied. I mean, that's why we're doing this match. Their fighting styles are very similar. It's going to look like someone took a bunch of turtles, gave them knives, and they're all just trying to poke each other through the gaps in the shells. Phalanx versus phalanx. It's going to be weird. But one side loves being warriors more than life itself, while the other side never asked for this.
I never asked for this.
Your Honor, before I go, just imagine you're a hiring manager, and you've narrowed down your picks to 2 people with similar skills and experience. One guy, super stoic and straightforward in the interview, you trust he's going to do the job. But the other oozes passion and excitement as you tell him what he can expect working there. You get the sense that he can not only do the job, he's gonna love it. Who do you pick?
Ooh!
Wow, Team 300, you are bullshit blotted out the sun. So, Team Unsullied looks like you'll have to make your opening arguments in the shade.
To understand the Unsullied of the slave cities, we have to go further back in time to the very dawn of civilization. As Master Yendal explains, the legendary founder of Old Gis, Grazdan the Great, founded the lockstep legions with their tall shields and 3 spears, which were the first to fight as disciplined bodies. Old Gis and its empire proceeded to colonize its surroundings and then pressing on to subjugate its neighbor. Thus was the first empire born, and for centuries it reigned supreme. The secret to the success of the Giscari legions was in their discipline. By learning to fight and march in literal lockstep, the legions would hit their opponents as one rather than as individual fighters. Each member of the legion would use their shield to defend the man on the left and in turn be defended by the man on the right, fearing them to concentrate on fighting with the 3 spears. The solidarity of the unit was critical to success. As the front ranks of the legion slammed into the enemies, the men behind would add their weight to the men in front, pushing their way over the enemy like a human battering ram. As men fell in battle, the men behind would quickly step into their place, presenting an unyielding and seemingly immortal front to an exhausted opponent. We can see the foundations of the old lockstep legions in the training of the Unsullied, who train from dawn to dusk until they have mastered the short sword, the shield, and the 3 spears. However, the Unsullied differ from their ancestors in one key way. The lockstep legions of Old Gis were free, and the Unsullied are not. Because the Unsullied are slaves, their training has been intensified beyond what any free man would willingly endure. On a physical level, the Unsullied are chosen young, for size and speed and strength, and then culled in training if they cannot run all day in full pack, scale a mountain in the black of night, walk across a bed of hot coals to ensure that they are perfect specimens. So intense is this training that only 1 boy in 3 survives it. The Spartiate aristocrats, on the other hand, only making up a small percentage of their society, can't afford that kind of attrition. The psychological training is even more strenuous. To ensure that the Unsullied are absolutely obedient, absolutely loyal, and utterly without fear, the good masters of Astapor put recruits through a process of castration that required murder of animals and children, and then to reinforce this, they indoctrinate them with the wine of courage, that they drink with every meal from the day they are cut, and with each passing year feel less and less. As a result, the Unsullied are without fear, without pain, without emotion of any kind. Whatever the morality of this system, we can see its effectiveness in the case of the 3,000 of cohort. When the 3,000 fought against the Dothraki, they fought alone. The other mercenaries had fled. But every time the Dothraki charged, the Unsullied locked their shields, lowered their spears, and stood firm. Against 20,000 screamers with bells in their hair, they stood firm. 18 times the Dothraki charged and broke themselves on those spears and those shields, like waves against a rocky shore. Thrice Temo sent his archers wheeling past. By the way, yes, they actually did send their archers screaming wheeling past, and arrows fell like rain upon the 3,000. But the Unsullied merely lifted their shields above their heads until the squall had passed. In the end, only 600 of them remained, but more than 12,000 Dothraki lay dead upon the field. So what does this tell us about the Unsullied? Number 1. The Unsullied are an exaggeration of the historical myth of the Spartans, which means they start out more disciplined and more fearless than their real-world counterparts. 2. Because of the deficiencies of the fictional Spartans of Miller and Snyder's 300, which my colleague will get into, the Unsullied are the only ones actually fighting like real Spartans in disciplined formation instead of in single combat slow motion. 3. Because the Unsullied are noted to have such a substantial advantage over exactly the kind of proud, undisciplined, macho jarheads that Snyder depicted in his film, they are clearly the superior combatant.
On the surface, the Unsullied and the 300 are mirror images. In many ways, most notably their use of spear and shield and phalanx formation, the Spartans are the historical foundation for the Unsullied, even having their own Battle of Thermopylae and their own 300, the 3,000 of cohort. But there are several key differences between these two conflicts that can help explain why the Unsullied are going to send Leonidas and his male model CrossFit club home on their shields.
But why male models?
The main difference is that, unlike the 300, the Unsullied won. They defeated Khal Temo's horde, killing more than 12,000 seasoned mounted Dothraki warriors. The 300 Spartans, on the other hand, all die. Now, to be fair, they knew going in they were vastly outnumbered and that their only hope lay in the advantage of the Grecian terrain, and they lost that advantage because Ephialtes betrayed them. Okay, sure, granted. But Ephialtes betrayed them because Leonidas wouldn't take him on as a soldier, and Leonidas wouldn't take him on as a soldier because he can't secure the phalanx formation. We fight as a single, impenetrable unit, Leonidas says. That is the source of our strength. Each Spartan protects the man to his left from thigh to neck with his shield. Now, to quote my good friend Kit Mulcairn, does he...
Oh my god, I do say that.
You do. The 300 fight in phalanx for like a minute at the beginning of the film, during that weird part where the two sides are just pushing each other. When the actual fight begins, they break formation and then spend pretty much the rest of the movie fighting individually or in pairs. The last thing we actually see a phalanx do is push the very first wave of Persians off a cliff, which happens 49 minutes into the movie. Then we don't see a phalanx again until the 1 hour 34 minute mark, a full 45 minutes later. 45 minutes that are mostly full of the 300 fighting people. And even then, they're just huddled up while the Persian forces encircle them. So either they don't actually use the phalanx very often, or they didn't use it at Thermopylae because their enemies were so bad at fighting that they didn't need to. Either way, the 300 are screwed. If they didn't use the phalanx very often, then they don't have the training or discipline to employ it to its best effect, and they will be cut to ribbons by the Unsullied, who do. And if they just didn't use it because the Persians were so incredibly pathetic, which actually is a thing the movie makes a point of driving home over and over again, what does that say about the Battle of Thermopylae? Because let me tell you, I watched that movie again twice for you people. And almost all that time was spent watching a bunch of morons with short-range melee weapons charge dramatically into long-range spear thrusts. The Unsullied might not go around calling themselves immortals, but they also don't run headfirst into a wall of spears, wielding nothing but short katanas, so maybe we should rethink which group is more deserving of that title. And even if the 300 do fight in phalanx formation, and even if they do fight well, it's still not going to matter. The discipline of the Unsullied is legendary. They will not break rank for any reason, and any Spartan that does is going to be immediately overrun and killed. Their morale is ironclad. Between years of dawn to dusk training, which starts at 5, not 7, and an inability to feel pain thanks to the wine of courage, it is inconceivable for an Unsullied to either stop fighting or flee unless ordered to do so. They will not get tired. They can stay awake for days on end and never falter. Leonidas will not be able to manipulate them into deploying an inferior strategy, as he does with Xerxes. He has no Arcadians with which to ambush them. There is no cliff to push them off. And while Spartan blood clearly runs hot, producing warriors that laugh in the face of death, but also descend into reckless frenzy when they lose someone close to them, the Unsullied are cold as ice. Every single one of them has killed an innocent child before its mother's eyes, along with their own beloved pet dogs, because that's what it takes to become Unsullied. You're not fighting brainwashed slaves anymore, Leonidas. These are the lockstep legions. Their spears are tipped with steel, whereas your shields are bronze. They wear light armor, whereas you wear abs. And while you are free men, Daenerys Targaryen's Unsullied are highly trained slave soldiers who became free men. Soldiers who fight for freedom with all the zeal that you have, but also with the coordinated movements of a perfect collective fighting machine. You can't fight ultimate discipline, ultimate morale, and ultimate motivation all at the same time, which is why nobody in the A Song of Ice and Fire series has ever defeated these Unsullied in combat.
Why are you all still making opening arguments? Don't you know that this is rebuttals? Team 300, tonight, you rebut in hell.
First of all, oh my god, you killed a child. Wow, congratulations on part of your training being killing a defenseless child and a defenseless puppy. I killed a wolf, okay? Yeah, I said whatever, first person.
She is all 300 Spartans now.
All 300 Spartans killed crazy, mangy wolves that were huge wolves wolves.
I mean, I was making a point more about their fearlessness and mercilessness, but Unsullied, I'm sure, have also killed wolves and things like them during the course of their training.
Source material, bitch!
And I'd point out that the Spartans actually killed slaves, not wolves. I mean, if we're going to believe,
well, in the movie,
propaganda.
Puppies and children don't fight back, so it's not impressive.
That's true, though. Technically,
slaves aren't allowed to fight back.
Technically,
until now.
The 300 is like all told through the eyes of some dude who's telling the story who we don't know what he's embellishing, so I'm just saying.
Also, one eye, not two eyes.
Oh, sorry. My apologies.
So anyways, one of your arguments was like, oh my god, we don't see the 300 like using a phalanx. Well, guess what? We both use the history of training, so saying that is ridiculous. Just because it wasn't shown a lot doesn't mean it wasn't used. That's what they were famous for. And we did reference history at the beginning, so if anything, the fact that they're not using the phalanx shows that they're adaptable. Why use a formation when another formation is more useful? That's why they split up. To say that just because they're not using the phalanx means they're somehow less effective in combat makes absolutely no sense.
As far as the source material is concerned, if we're sticking to the source material, I have to look at what they chose to do under these circumstances and determine they did not choose to fight under the phalanx. They chose to fight in a style that's like more along the lines of a skirmisher, which is fine for what they were going up against, apparently. But if the Unsullied use a phalanx formation, skirmishing tactics are not going to be very effective against them. And if the 300 respond by going into phalanx formation, I'm pretty sure, as I said in my opening, that the Unsullied can out-phalanx the 300. I mean, you're talking about history, the entire phalanx strategy was broken, and Stephen, correct me if I'm wrong about this, was defeated, I believe, by the Thebans, who employed a similar strategy, but the ace in the hole was that the people involved had super high morale, and were doing the phalanx thing, but simply could not be broken apart, as the Spartans eventually could be.
That's correct. Essentially, the problem with the Spartan phalanx is that it's ultimately fragile. They're very strong, but they don't have many numbers, they can't replace themselves, and the moment they sort of run out of energy, they get run over. So the Sacred Band of Thebes were able to outlast the Spartans because basically they were all gay lovers and they would refuse to run away
That's right,
in the face of their lovers. And so, gayness defeated the Spartans.
You talk about the Unsullied facing them and, they're a proud enemy, they're not going to fight well or whatever. I mean, the Persians weren't proud. They had an orgy tent. The 300 didn't let their own pride get into it.
I think the argument was their pride makes them worse fighters because they do stupid shit like charge in one-on-one.
Once again,
when their friends die.
Battle tactic.
A losing battle tactic, I think you'll find.
Not really. They always regroup.
And then die.
The Spartans are noticeably stronger. Like Liz did mention the castration thing, so if we're talking about physicality, that's out the window for them. We have the same amount of numbers. In the movie, as Miles said, we do see the Spartans using phalanx against opponents that are also using their shields. The Spartans, are totally stronger than them and push them over and slowly mow through the thing. The fact that the Spartans have that creativity that they were trained/raised with, that do anything it takes, think outside of the box if it means you survive. That's what they got going for them.
My response to that would be to say, when they pushed the Persians in that first wave over the cliff, the Persians were not fighting back at all. They were just standing there waiting to be pushed. I would also mention the fact that, according to the text of the film that we're drawing from, the Persians in this case were, let me see if I can find it here. Pansy little brown-skinned boy men, I believe, is what the subtext of the movie was telling me. It's not what I would say about them, but the film is devoted to telling me that the Persian enemy is not at all as strong as the Spartans. Now, when it comes to the Unsullied...
Frank Miller, am I right? What an ass.
I mean, look, you know what? There's a reason I didn't want to be on that team. The Unsullied are not that enemy. They are accustomed to fighting in a phalanx formation. And as far as the strength thing goes, I don't think it really matters because their discipline more than makes up for their strength. It's stated many times in A Song of Ice and Fire. And Leonidas himself would tell you when he was fighting that big, strong dude in the immortal fight that strength isn't always going to win the day.
And that will do it for that round of rebuttals. So that means Team Unsullied, you need eunuchs, you need unique eunuchs. And also rebuttals.
Oh my god.
You could not find any good Unsullied references, could you?
I found some okay ones, but they were all pretty obscure, to be fair.
The first thing I'd say is that the Spartans don't just break formation when a new tactic is needed, they break it whenever it's dramatically necessary. So they break it when they've just won a fight, they break it when they're not winning a fight, they break it when a friend dies, they break it when the director really wants to look at their naked abs. Yeah. So I think the basic problem is that it's not about being adaptable, it's about being undisciplined. They simply can't control their raging yangs. I mean, the pouches aren't big enough.
Number one, you want to mop up the fight. Of course they're going to break ranks. Of course they're going to employ shock and awe tactics. Of course they're going to rip through people one by one. Why stay in a phalanx? You can mop up people running away faster than you can by staying in a phalanx. Number two, one guy freaked out. the father. That was it. They're not all freaking out. That argument makes no sense.
Freak out guy became like stronger. He just hulked out basically.
Yeah.
He didn't die till the very end.
Yes,
Exactly.
he stepped on several more ants. Very true.
Where are the ants here? Get it straight.
Is this a war for ants?
Our second Zoolander reference of the evening from Miss L. Logan.
All right. I want to quickly bring up a couple of the battles that the Unsullied fight, because, Liz, I think you mentioned that they had never really won any major battles, and specifically you mentioned Yunkai, which is the battle where, according to your argument, they won because the one mercenary company betrayed Yunkai, another mercenary company was drunk. Fair enough, but I want to remind you, that's not the reason that the Unsullied won the fight. That's the reason that Daenerys' army won the fight while only losing 12 people total.
Fighting unarmed combatants? Oh, sorry.
They were not fighting unarmed combatants, in fact.
What's that about thinking cleverly and adapting to circumstances?
Oh, I don't doubt that it was a tactically sound decision, but the thing is, the 300 aren't unarmed.
Neither of the people... Anyway, they're definitely fully trained. Like, Daenerys took a bunch of non-trained kids, like, before they could kill their puppies or whatever, but, like...
Oh, so sad.
She has 8,000 fully trained Unsullied. Like, all of the ones in this fight are most definitely fully trained. And as I said before, that training begins at 5, not 7, and is worse than the Agoge.
2 years of child labor. 2 years of child
Our
labor
training
makes a
is
difference. But it's okay, because I think the balllessness during that childhood, that very important childhood growth, negates it. Who knows? I don't like math. I'm not doing this math for sure.
The Unsullied that you spoke of, who were defeated at the Horns of Hazat, those were actually untrained child slaves that Cleon the Great had hastily put together in part of his war against the Yunkai. That is a completely separate force from Daenerys' fully trained Unsullied.
Because Daenerys took all the Unsullied they had, and so they had to, like, quickly make more, but they're not trained at all. Daenerys' are.
They're also not associated with Daenerys at all.
Yes.
No, I know, but we're talking again about the history of the fighters. And, I mean, we talk about, they have the morale to fight. I just don't believe it. They have this young warrior princess. I mean, when she disappears, they refuse to follow the orders of her husband. And I mean, like, what do they really have to fight for?
They can fight for freedom. They refuse to follow her husband because he's trying to reinstall slavery. The new Unsullied, who are now calling themselves the Free Sons, who are taking their own names, who are showing every indication that they intend to stay and fight for their freedom, are fighting for a good cause. And I would also add that the people who oppose them are also ex-slavers. The slave citizens of Meereen are joining the Unsullied. They're being recruited into new regiments. So what we've got here is a slave rebellion, a revolution. And who's not going to fight as hard as possible for a revolution? Whereas, the 300 of Sparta claim to be fighting for freedom, but 90% of the population of Sparta are slaves who the Spartans literally have to make war on every single year to keep in subjugation.
No, they're definitely fighting for their own freedom, definitely not the freedom of their slaves. I ain't gonna play, the movie didn't really mention that, right? They didn't talk about the slave stuff.
Oh no, definitely
Frank
didn't touch
Miller
on
likes
slaves
to believe that it's all about, this was really about Iraq.
The 300 are fighting because they are the last bastion of hope for Greece. They have a very acute need to fight as long and as hard as they possibly can. The Unsullied literally just sit around in Meereen for 2 books. George R. R. Martin, what are you doing? You're wasting a character. Oh my God. What is Daenerys doing?
Your opponent here is Martin, not us.
Why? Why?
I don't know that we've had a match where the creators of the two respective characters were so aggressively on trial as this one. This is really a benchmark for this show.
Let me just wrap up. The 300 had a more acute reason. They had more reason to drive passion behind their fighting than what the Unsullied do. Literally, they're just standing around. They're just standing around.
Liz, the Unsullied are perfectly obedient. So when Daenerys tells them to stand around, they're going to stand around. If
so then they're not fighting for freedom. They're fighting for Daenerys. They're fighting for their overlord.
They worship her.
All right. I can sense this descending into a very un-Spartan and Unsullied madness and undiscipline. So I'm gonna have
we're breaking rocks.
I will kick you guys down a well. Just letting you know. The ground of Thermopylae has grown black with the blood of the fallen, Spartans and Unsullied alike. Yet despite each side being surrounded by hundreds of their slain brothers in arms, neither force shows any interest in giving up. Before the remaining forces can come together in one final clash, a figure wearing an elaborate white tunic suddenly appears between them in a blaze of divine light. Both sides are momentarily stunned as the figure declares, "I command you to stop." Grey Worm is the first to speak. "Who are you, stranger?" "I am the god of the unpredictable, the chaotic, and the nonsensical. My favorite animal is the platypus.
Liz?
My favorite Smash Fiction host is Liz.
Yay!
And my weapon of choice is the lightning round."
I got hit.
You can call me John Baldock. I have stepped down from Olympus today because both of your armies are in violation of divine law. As we speak, the Olympic Games are in full swing.
Oh, shit.
And with the beginning of the Games comes the Olympic truce, during which no warfare can be conducted. If you wish to continue your little squabble, you'll have to do so in the Olympics.
We're just tearing off them panties now.
Massage oil! Greco-Roman wrestling! Okay, sorry.
Hopefully, none of your soldiers have been doping lately because they now need to prove their superiority through an unusually arbitrary selection of physical sports.
Fuck yeah.
The rulership of Sparta will now be determined by whichever side can score the greater number of gold medals in an international athletics competition. But because John Baldock is a god of improbability, time has shifted for this particular competition. You aren't limited to just competing in ancient Olympic sports like wrestling and the javelin, but any sport which has ever been a part of any Olympic Games, summer or winter, is on the table. So let's hope you have someone in your army who's really good at badminton and kite flying. So please, each of you, tell me one or two sports that you think your characters would be especially skilled at and why. From which events are your characters sure to claim a gold medal? And, John Baldock is the god of the unexpected, so nonsensical answers are certainly appreciated. Team 300 went first in the main round, so Team Unsullied will be going first in the lightning round.
Our first Olympic event will be boxing, and the reason we're picking this is that historically speaking, the Spartans always forfeited at boxing matches during the historical Olympic Games, because if they lost a match, they would be so humiliated that they would be exiled from their home city, and thus would rather forfeit than lose. So we win by default.
We just win that one.
Secondly, disabled skiing. The Unsullied are disabled, the Spartans are disqualified because they're not disabled, so again, we win by default.
Very good.
I would say part of me really wants to go for something basic like the javelin throw, just because Leonidas totally misses Xerxes at the end of that movie. But I think the thing that the Unsullied would be significantly better at than the Spartans is a little game that I like to call football. So the reason is that football basically is like a military campaign, and the Unsullied, with their perfect coordination and cohesiveness, would just instantly understand their roles and execute them to perfection. Every fucking play would work perfectly because they just continue to execute and execute and execute. And meanwhile, the Spartans are running out of here without any pads. They don't have helmets. I mean, I guess they have them, but they take them off all the time.
Oh god, the concussions.
Yeah, so many concussions. I just think we're going to be the Astapor Freedom Dragons. All right.
Okay.
All right. The Astapor Freedom Dragons. And our logo is going to be the Targaryen logo, but just surrounded with the word freedom. It's going all the way around the edge of the circle and with an exclamation point kind of at the top. That's going to be our football team, and it's just going to blow the other team out of the water. For my second sport, I went with curling.
Of course.
Mainly because it's cool and I love it.
Also a
I
finesse
don't know about cool.
It's on ice. I mean,
it is
come
quite
on.
literally cool.
Oh, okay, fair.
I think it would kind of go really well with the Unsullied's cold as ice sensibilities. Curling, man, you're a fucking sniper and you have to be accurate and precise and understand angles and geometry. And another Olympic sport that involves working as a team, which the Unsullied do perfectly, unlike the Spartans who, go crazy when their sons die because they have emotions and shit. Lame people. What kind of men are you having emotions? That's what Frank Miller has taught me.
Yep.
Are you talking about American football?
Of course I'm talking about American football.
American football was never an official Olympic sport. It was a demonstration sport. When they say football, they're referencing soccer.
I mean, sure, but Liz.
Listen, John Baldock is a complex god.
Yeah, John Baldock doesn't understand the difference between football and
that
football.
was just for Miles, as lovers of American football. That was just for Miles.
All right, great.
I love you, Miles.
I was thinking of you when I picked that one, Liz.
Okay.
Well, let me say I am extremely entertained by the suggestion that the Spartans would just play football with no pads. That's
Yeah, I mean,
don't
come
need
on.
them.
that's beautiful. Very well done, Team Unsullied. NBC, thanks you. Team 300, how about you?
The first competition the 300 will do amazingly at is the bobsled. Let me explain.
300-person bobsled, huh? All right.
Four-person bobsled. The 300 wear no armor. They're going to be perfectly aerodynamic, unlike the Unsullied, who have bulky chest cuirasses and other thingies.
I think that's totally fair. If Miles can argue that the Spartans never wear armor, then Liz can argue that the Unsullied never remove their armor. And I think that totally makes sense.
Do you mean they're light marauders tunics that are not
Doesn't
really
matter.
armor?
Don't try to take it back, Miles.
Sorry. Go ahead,
American
Liz.
football. So they'll be close together, and they're used to working in a cohesive unit, and they're used to being in places that are small and cramped. They're going to be amazing
like a
at this.
bobsled?
And they're heavy, so they're going to go even faster because they're just that tasty massage oil muscle mass, I guess. Okay, the second event that they're going to do fantastically at is equestrian. Their long, flowing red cloaks, Leonidas's beautiful helmet with accompanying red plume.
No helmet. They gotta be naked.
They have great
Give the helmet to the
posture.
horse.
Great posture because of their 8-pack, 10-pack abs. Standing straight. They have a rich history of mounted cavalry units in Sparta, the Hippias or something or other, and they will look like beautiful Greek gods on their horses as they prance around. They're used to peacocking, and on top of a horse is no different than doing it while saying, "Ow, ow, nay."
I mean, I will allow all of that. Do you know who they're not better at bobsledding, though? The crew from Seinfeld.
I refuse to engage with you, Miles.
I love you, Liz.
All right, Kit.
All right. I mean, at first I was like, oh, do I just want to win and like pick things where the Spartans are going to be stronger than the Unsullied, like wrestling or fucking tug of war? Like, nah, that's fucking boring. Let's see. Let's challenge.
That's not what Leonidas would do.
Let's challenge our greasy boys a little bit.
Greasy boys.
They're greasy. Good greasy
you
boys.
know they're greasy. They look greasy.
They do like to peacock a lot. So I think some of the perfect sports for them are going to be skateboarding.
Yes!
Naked skateboarding.
They just keep losing clothes. They
just
lose
gonna be
more
a
clothes.
Dante? What the fuck?
Well, this is
Look, John Baldock is a fucking, who knows with this
Yeah.
guy.
this is the Greek Olympics. It's nude. It's all nude.
That's true.
God, read a book. So, all the naked Spartans, and you know what? Let's get one horse in here. Let's teach this horse how to skateboard real quick.
What the fuck?
We're gonna borrow a horse from your
I
equestrian.
bequeath you one of my horses.
The most radical horse given to me. The Spartans succeed at anything they put their fucking mind and pride to, so I can see some dope-ass, super synchronized phalanx skateboarding routines. All those skater boy terms that I do not know because I was not in that crowd.
You said see you later, boy.
They were all skater boys.
Spartans! Drop in the half pipe!
Tonight, we grind in hell!
Is that it for Team 300, or did you have one more, Kit?
I really do like the visual of bouncing male genitalia, so let's go with trampoline sports.
Okay, trampoline gymnastics.
Sports?
Wow.
Yeah, motherfucker. They got some strong ass fucking legs. They can get up real high. I'm sure they're very, very bendy. I think part of being good at wrestling is making sure all stretched
Yes.
out and shit. So they can do some fucking dope poses midair. Also, very greasy, so maybe they can do some like what is like the equivalent of some sweet ass midair dancing. They just slide off of each other and ooh, you know what? This is getting to Bob territory. Hold on.
Yeah,
Back off now. Bob, send me your fic.
I just want to say, no penises, more aerodynamic.
Wait,
All
you
right.
have penises. You just have to have balls.
No,
they're
all gone.
fully castrated.
they are
They
fully
take the
castrated.
pillar and the stones.
Oh, that's so sad. What is it? Just like a cloaca down there now? Is it just like I don't understand. It seems like you need a penis if you got to pee, right?
I can tell that Kit's having a little bit of a crisis. So I think I should probably
Intervention.
leave you guys alone to work through the specifics of castration with her. So I'll be back in a second, let you know what I come up with.
I am not Google image searching this.
No, don't.
I wouldn't.
We just ended an episode with castration.
I mean, yeah.
There's been a
Yeah.
lot of dick jokes.
Anyway.
Not enough. Honestly.
So yeah, 300.
Just
got
the tip of the penis joke.
Just got to rewatch that.
Yeah, what'd you think?
I mean, I saw it when it came out in theaters back when I knew nothing of movies. I will say, as a movie, it's fine. I actually think maybe probably one of Zack Snyder's better, like, visually. I do like that he respects the comics that it came from. Current Kid says, nah, not for me. I'm just like, I don't need all that machismo and how, like, sensitivity is weakness. Fuck that.
Let me tell you what I liked about it. It's visually beautiful.
Yes.
And Gerard Butler does a hell of a job.
Yeah.
I'd say Faramir does a good job.
Oh, every time fucking Faramir opened his mouth, I wanted to punch him in it, Liz. I hated the script of this movie so much, you guys.
I'm amazed that it was Magneto's big break.
I know, right?
Right?
Fassbender, yeah.
He
no
jumped
idea.
off that wall.
He showed
jumped
up and I
off
was
that
like,
bar.
holy shit, I didn't know who you were back when this movie came out.
Yeah, they jammed PEDs into him, and he was like, Hollywood, I'm ready.
But
Did
no,
Fassbender become a vampire? Because he does not look younger.
I know, right?
He just looks the same as he
I
is
was
now.
going to say, have you seen photo comparisons of Keanu Reeves? That's the scariest case I've seen yet.
Oh, no, he
That
definitely
guy
vampire.
has not aged since the early 90s.
And I
Yeah.
love
For
Keanu. What a great guy.
This movie was really poorly written and super racist, guys. It's
I
really-
mean, it's fucking Frank Miller.
I
And
know, but like,
Didn't it come
Yeah.
out, like, after? When was 9/11?
9/11, yeah.
yeah, it was after 9/11, but the comic was 98, I think.
Yeah, sure. I mean, like, Miller's hated Islamic people for a long time.
Yeah.
But, like, yeah, it was so obviously made after that because of all the talk of freedom and the Persians as the enemy. And it's like, oh, great.
Yeah, I have respect for anyone who can watch this movie and like just watch it as like a cool comic book movie. Like, that's fine. I can't do it. With every time the message is reinforced of this is what a real white man is, and real white men are the backbone of Western civilization.
Yep.
And Faramir is the fucking worst about it because he's the one saying all this shit. And like, while he's making all these glowing statements about like manhood and Greece and shit, he's also like repeating things we already know. I think it was like an hour and a half into the movie where he's like, and we held them at the hot gates where their numbers could make no difference. And I'm like, yeah, dude, we know. It's been happening for a while.
I will recommend one 300 related project. There is a graphic novel / like comic miniseries called 3 by Kieran Gillen.
Oh,
yeah.
Fantastic.
Then it's great.
Which is a
Gillen's great.
demolition of everything that 300
Yes.
stands for.
Oh, that's amazing.
You will love it.
I'm sure
We
I will.
love Kieran Gillen.
Yeah, Kieran Gillen is a god around here. I think that a lot of people listening to this are curious as to hear us talk about Game of Thrones, considering the new season is here, and considering, Steven, you're something of an expert. I'm curious as to whether or not you've been enjoying season 8.
How shall I put it? I've been watching it at like 1.5 speed to force myself through it. But I
Okay.
am looking forward to the next episode, which is like going to be the big battle sequence, because they can still do spectacle. Their ability to write dialogue and believable characters and coherent plotting and interesting themes has completely disappeared, but it's real purty.
Miles, have you watched any of the show? I can't remember.
I've watched the first 5 seasons.
That's sad. Anyways, how much?
You got off at about the right time.
How much,
I figured.
Steven, do you think the books are going to diverge from the show?
Radically.
I agree.
Do you
Y'all
really?
still think there's gonna
'Cause
be
I
books?
kind of don't. Game of Thrones spoilers.
I would prefer to remain unspoiled on this because I do intend to catch up with the TV show at some point. So right now we're going to talk about this match. And You guys, this one was really, really difficult to figure out. This was really a battle of inches in a lot of ways. Like, it was just a lot of little points going back and forth. A couple of big points, like, I do feel like the Spartans have a significant advantage in terms of strength, but the Unsullied have a significant advantage in terms of their gear and their equipment. But, like, those were really the big ones. Like, more than one person said it in their opening arguments. Both of these sides, to some extent, are like fictional exaggerations of these actual historical warriors, the Spartans. They tread a lot of the same ground, and the differences between them are not incredibly great most of the time. I do think that one of the differences between them, and again, this is a very small one, is in terms of their morale and in terms of their discipline. Because both are incredibly disciplined, and both are fearless. The Spartans literally fight until they die. There is no fear in the Spartans. And the Unsullied are trained from birth, basically, to be completely fearless. But when it comes to discipline, we do see that the Spartans can get emotional because they care deeply about each other. And those are the moments where we see them making mistakes. And I just don't think the Unsullied make those sorts of mistakes. And I think that the Unsullied are the sort of opponents that will kill Spartans in enough numbers that the Spartans will make mistakes. This is a game of inches, and that was the inch that I came down on. I have to give this victory to the Unsullied with great reservation.
GG, y'all! Turtles with knives!
Let me just say, that was one of the most enjoyable matches I have ever been involved with.
That was a ton of fun.
You were getting fucking heated. I was like,
dude,
oh my god.
Liz, you gotta advocate on the show more often, dude. You're so good. You're such a delight to listen to. And Steven, you were too.
Steven, you were really good.
Yeah, man.
Thank you. I like the Olympic ones. Basically, I was like, how can I cheat at this?
I think the greatest tragedy is I worked really hard to figure out what the Greek term for lightning round was, and then I didn't actually find a way to fit it into my judges thing. So, you know.
Oh, no.
That's the real Greek tragedy here.
Well, I can do it in post.
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone else, though, I thought, really excellent job. Top-notch work from everyone.
Thank you so much. You were awesome. Steven, thank you so much. You were awesome.
My pleasure. Worthy opponents all around.
It feels so good to win again. Thank you.
I don't care. That was so fun.
Yeah, Steven, you're a joy to have on. I'm glad you were able to join us. Would you care to tell the audience about some of the things that you do that they might like to know about?
Sure. So if you're interested in Game of Thrones and A Song of Ice and Fire, and the intersection between history and pop culture more generally, I write at Race for the Iron Throne at WordPress and also on Tumblr. If you're interested in comic books, I write for Graphic Policy, and I podcast in a whole bunch of places, and you can find me on Twitter at Stephen Atwell.
One of the places Steven podcasts I want to point out is the Unspoiled Podcast Network, where he and I have come together a number of times in the Song of Ice and Fire and Game of Thrones Patreon feeds. So if you are a patron of Unspoiled, which again you should be, you can check out all of our stuff, including me getting really mad at the World Book for some reason back in the day. I was a different person, man.
I feel like, Miles, there is an entire network to be built around the premise of Miles gets really mad at X. And just
Miles, you're so lucky that we never made it to do Fire and Blood, because I think there's things in that book that would, like, give you an aneurysm.
I'm sure there are. And by the way, Dan, that's currently the basis for my projected podcast network. I'm actually working on that. So,
oh, great. That sounds perfect.
Yeah.
Time for the kit thanks. First of all, thank you to patron Richard McCrae, my online friend, for submitting this match to us. Since he was a $10 patron for over 3 months, he got to submit this. This was his desire.
Yeah, he dictated this match. He even talked to me for a bit about some of the lightning rounds that he would like to see, and what came out the other side was Olympics. So, Richard, I hope you're happy with that. But yeah,
Freedom Dragons!
Absolutely.
Go Freedom Dragons.
One of the benefits of being a patron, if you are at $10 or more for 3 months, you get to send us a list of matches that you would like to see, and we will turn one of them into an episode.
Over to Twitter. Thank you to Earthmofo, Jake Makes the Lake Bake Cakes, Cool Down Now, Icon Jade, Florian, Jeffrick Present, A Bunny Whom Lays Eggs, which is secretly Fat Blunt 69.
Fat Blunt 69!
The bluntiest eggs. Cringe Rap, Robert Ramsey, Cosplay Devotee, Cosplay Fiend, Sid Rabbit, 3 Owls in a Trench Coat, Vander Turner, and Lucas Brown. Over to Tumbles, thank you to Secretly a Skeleton, Sid Rabbit Blog, Ink the Cryptid, Fat Blunt 69.
Fat Blunt 69.
Miles is tireless.
Changing Shades, and Not Very Bright Raven, who had the hilarious tags of hashtag I was not expecting to visualize a fight between Freya and Gonzo, but hashtag life is about new experiences.
Oh my god.
Y'all killing me with your Tumblr tags, man. I swear, I always check to see if anyone puts fun Tumblr tags. And nothing on Facebook. Maybe that's my bad. Maybe that's my bad for not noticing. I'm so sorry. Or maybe y'all didn't share. I don't know.
Yeah.
If you didn't, you should have, because that was a great episode. Damn it.
We certainly don't want to point any fingers around here, unless they're pointing at John Baldock, who's our featured patron this episode. He's a patron of ours, along with Richard McRae. But in John's case, that means that in this episode, he got to be turned into a god of chaos and whimsy. Not quite at Liz Logan's level, I would say, but getting there. Like, he's got some potential.
We can't put too much expectation on the patrons.
Liz is on a completely different level.
Yeah.
But you know, there's any number of roles for you out there in the grand old multiverse, and it all starts at patreon.com/smashfictionpodcast. Miles, do you think we have time for one of our much neglected anniversary questions? Or
I actually do, yes.
Okay, cool. So I would like to dust off the anniversary questions and bring up this one from Matt Greeno, or possibly Greenuff. My apologies for the various and sundry ways that I destroy the pronunciation of your name. And this question actually could be applied to Steven as well. You are tasked with defending the universe from an unimaginable horror that will destroy everything as we know it. What 3 pop culture characters do you recruit to help you stop this?
Oh, shit.
I will
feels like a whole
start,
fucking
because
match.
I picked out the question, so I've been thinking about it.
Sure.
I think I would take Superman to deal with any physical challenges. I would take Moon Girl from Marvel to invent a solution. And then I would take George Carlin's character from Bill and Ted, just in case things get screwed up and we need time travel to go back and try again. So yeah, I think that's the dream team.
I would go with Doctor Strange because he can see all the possible outcomes. Bill and Ted for time travel. And I'm going to probably go with Zach from Saved by the Bell because he can stop things instantly and then just fix everything in, his godlike ways.
Doubling up on the time manipulation. I like it.
I don't remember the question, so it's so it's Dante, Naked Snake, and Leon Kennedy, because those are like my 3 favorite Japanese game franchises. They can win at anything.
Perfect. The universe is as good as saved.
Yeah.
I feel like Dante's going to be the most useful in saving the universe.
Yeah, see, at least one of my picks was good.
I'm going to just pick my 3 favorite disaster boys / boy girl. Jace Beleren from Magic the Gathering. Loki and Stitch. They're gonna save the universe, but it's not gonna be the same way it was before.
That's right.
I was going to say large parts of it would be on fire, but it's saved.
That's funny, Kit, because I also have, I mean, not similar, but like, definitely the universe is not going to be the way it was before. But like, if things have gotten to this point and they're that bad, then the team I want is Scarlet Witch, Dr. Manhattan,
Ooh, yeah.
and Steven Universe to keep them together and cohesive and on the same page.
Oh, that's perfect.
I saved the universe.
Keep them from rewriting reality into something dark and horrible, which both of them are prone to do. He would be the sort of guiding force in how we're going to rewrite reality to get rid of this threat.
Wow. Good job, Miles. That is a killer trio for sure.
My other answer was just the Black Lotus Triad from Lucha Underground, because I'm pretty sure they can do anything.
Wow.
Oh boy. Well, thank you all for listening to this episode of Smash Fiction. Please join us again next week for an episode of Collaboratory. Smash Fiction is produced by Miles Schneiderman and production assistant Sharon Schneiderman, with logo design by Claire Mulcairn.
Special thanks to Kevin MacLeod of the Clan MacLeod at Incompetech.com for our theme song, Hitman.
You can find us on Twitter at SmashFic Podcast and search for the Smash Fiction Podcast on Facebook, Tumblr, and YouTube.
Subscribe on Apple Podcasts or your podcatcher of choice, and if you leave us a good review, we shall become more powerful than you can possibly imagine.
Smash Fiction is made possible thanks to our supporters on Patreon at patreon.com/smashfictionpodcast. Please consider donating as little as $1 each month. It helps us keep the show going. And we have great rewards and extra content for those who help us out.
If you have any suggestions, feedback, or other contributions, send them to us at smashfictionpodcast@gmail.com and help us continue the fight.
And I gotta reward that kind of dedication here on the show. So Team 300 will be going first, followed by Team Unsullied.
Oh, that makes me so happy.
Well, Steven doesn't get to be run through this ringer?
Steven is Cookie Cat, and Steven is a big fat mean.
Yeah,
What is
I am
wrong with
Steven
me?
Universe.
What is wrong with me?
Steven